mystified by your being mystified. Because, and this is for you too, Malachi, because you assume certain understanding of human beings as consistent, as lucid, as consistent, as predictable, as also logical for sure, but or have to have a certain logic with which they go all along the way in a consistent manner, to be easily labeled, and to be open about their thoughts. That unless I go into his way of thinking and try to defend something that I really cannot defend. You try to logicalize.
The historian is a logician of contradiction.
Right. And do I really want always to do that? Sometimes I have to say there is something here. He has here two things that don't come together in the conventional sense that a journalist would bring together. So I have two questions. One is about Eibeshitz being a sui generis. I mean, he is an original thinker. A. B. That he was not a conventional Sabbatean, and if Sabbateans flocked around him in different parts of Europe, they were flocking around new ideas that pushed the movement a step forward. C. That he could have been, he lived the life of an almost conventional Jewish rabbi, but perhaps not fully. That is, if we accept Amden, who is not always a reliable source. He was a rather disturbed person, according to some analysis of his attitudes, including in the realm of sexuality, sex and sexuality. Not a very pleasant person.
Yeah, I think Eibeshitz was an extraordinary man in his containing contradictions within himself. I don't think he's unique. I think that's part of the mystery of who we are. Mm-hmm. And I think that mysteries can be best explored in the most extreme presentations of them. And I think Eibeshitz within himself was that extreme, an extreme case of the contradiction.
Well, look, of course you can say that Eibeshitz was sui generis, but everyone is sui generis. You're sui generis, I am sui generis. It's a kind of thing you can say about absolutely. It's a formula which is always true, and therefore it doesn't explain explain much. It's not only. And really, it's not only about contradictions. I do not think that being an Orthodox rabbi and reading and writing pornography is that much of a contradiction. In fact, if you live in Israel, you know that it's not uncommon.
Or in New York, for that matter.
This is the kind of contradiction with which I have no problem, neither in historical sense, in the sense that I can point to a number of examples, nor in internal sense. My mind has no difficulty understanding that one particular person can be, perfectly orthodox on the one side and has his evil side. My problem with Eibeshitz is that I cannot understand the kind of contradictions he is dealing with, right? The way he combines elements, which I find very difficult to see how a person can combine, and for which I cannot find many good historical parallels. Even within the Sabbatean camps. Let's say, we pigeonhole Eibeshitz as a Sabbatian, right? He's the only Sabbatian who is a major halachist. He's the only, if you look at Sabbatian thought, you will find very sophisticated Kabbalah of different kinds. You will, here you have the major halachist. He's the only contemporary rabbi who is interested in his contemporary Christianity. On top of it, he's a lawyer in Gentile cause. So he has this side. He has hundreds of students who are flocking to him to study the Torah under him. He has interest in sciences. Like I cannot pinpoint who it is. It's too much and too far away. I don't know any other historical figure to whom I can compare.
And you will be making him, David and other people will be making him into a major figure, 18th century figures in Jewish studies. Because you see, the things I think the way in which the contradictions, the way to think about it, this is precisely the thing that attracts us here and requires the explanation of the historian, right? Our current state of categories is inadequate to explain to us the phenomenon known as Irishits, as well as other 18th century Sabbatianism. And what we do, or what you do in your work, is begin to fathom how such an 18th century figure operates, not because we are just interested in Irishits, because he was speaking, of course he was speaking at least, because making clear how Irishits operated would produce for us a different 18th century Jewish studies. This is what's going on here and what's going to be at stake.
I would like just to completely endorse Malachi's suggestion that the understanding of who Irishits was can add a whole new dimension to what it meant to be in the 18th century. A Jewish thinker, a Jewish leader, and I would just add one question or one thought. Since Irishits, you didn't say sui generis doesn't tell us very much, but I think he is in some ways a personality we call bigger than life. I wonder if his attraction to Sabbathanianism, his version, his understanding of the Sabbathean movement was not a means for him to find an intellectual shape, to find an intellectual venue that would give him independence. You'll be surprised, since I mentioned that some friend of mine, here a colleague at Duke, is a descendant of Emden. I can also throw names of 18th century rabbis here that I can take charge of. But they're terribly dull. They're terribly conventional. There were big names in their own time. They found the right positions, etc. None of them was an Irishit. Irishit, I'm asking if Irishit didn't need the Sabbatean option, which was an intellectual Jewish option. It was an option as a Kabbalist. It was an option as a Messianic thought. It was an option of. This gave him a certain hiding place, intellectual hiding place, a certain autonomy from just the conventional discourse that went along among 18th century rabbis. I'm just bringing that as a thought. Radical groups, antinomian groups that are persecuted, sometimes have a way of attracting certain people and not others. And I still think that his thought and vision went way beyond Sabbateanism, and is a connecting, you can then say, I think, but Malachi said the 18th century is different. It's not the 19th century, but it's certainly not the 17th century. Just being that as a thought, I'm extremely thankful also to you, David, who promoted here, emphasized here the Christian connection. We did that too, in the sense that this is a unique rabbi. This is a rabbi not just in conversation with Christian thought and with certain specific Christian schools. This is a rabbi who studied, learned Christian thinking. What does this tell us about him? What is this mixture of attraction to Sabbateanism and studying Christian theology tells us about a person who wants to open up. I think that there is a logic. I think that there is therefore a logic of this is the author of Vayot Voyom Elai. I think that the Christian connection, you said that you were walking on thin ice. I think that this is a rather thick ice, and that this needs to be explored more. I think that this can offer a lot of explanation. Of course it affected him if he studied Christianity. You don't view your own tradition the same way after you study carefully and extensively another tradition, especially a tradition with whom, speaking Jacob and Lisa, with whom Judaism is such a long and bitter and complicated interaction. Of course, this has done something to him in his thought. I'm sure about that. And I think the Christians he met and the Christians he read and the Christians who studied, they were not just, there are thousands of Christian thinkers. Those were specific Christian thinkers, and I think we do need to explore the Moravian connection, especially that we met Christians that didn't fit the Edom Esav formula. Those Christians don't fall easily into the vision of Esav. Thank you. I think those people deserve really lots and lots of thanks. For one thing, for reading texts that demand the intelligence of Ivishitz in order to read. You need not only the kind of background and knowledge that Ivishitz had to read Vavoyom Elai, you need to have more or less the same education to read it. So I think, and to read it in such a critical manner and in such a way that brings so much rich knowledge and ideas into it.
Genius
Thank
is
you.
thinking a genius.
Exactly. Thank you. We have had here an evening with two extraordinary scholars, and that's a treat. I actually was very much converted into great appreciation for Jonathan Ivishitz, and I don't share Emden's or even Scholem's understanding of who Ivishitz was and how he should be judged.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.